Hello, you're watching the Cheltenham preview on the At The Races website, on the microsite for Cheltenham. And with me in the studio is Mick Fitzgerald, who knows all about riding winners at Cheltenham. I'm happy to back a winner at Cheltenham, but you've ridden the Cheltenham winner, which must be very, very special.
There is no other, as far as I'm concerned. To win a champion hurdle or a champion chase or a Gold Cup is the pinnacle.
And we're previewing these races, like the Champion Hurdle. These championship races are run at a completely different pace when it comes to these festivals.
Yeah, I was trying to explain to somebody the other day about this, and I firmly believe that it's almost like a rhythm. It's almost like music and the beat of certain music, and certain horses just really react to that. And because of it, you see horses perform year after year on the big stage.
Because they're going at a lightning pace and
yeah,
sort of
and
coming...
as well, they're in their comfort zone. It's like if you try and drive a Mini at 30 miles an hour, it's going to travel at comfortably, the same as a Lexus. If you go at 100 miles an hour and put your foot down, the Lexus is going to pick up, but the Mini won't.
I know what it's like in the old Ford Cortina. Anyway, let's have a look at the Stan James Champion Hurdle, which we are looking at, which is, I mean, it's going to be, I think you could argue, it's going to be one of the races of the festival because it's got such an open look to it. I don't know. I don't want you to be too biased because I know, you know, with the Nicky Henderson angle, you obviously got a slight...
I am biased.
You are?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you've got to be objective as well. Binocular is the 7-2 favourite. Hurricane Fly, 5-1. Menorah, 5-1. Peddler's Cross, 11-2. I mean, any of those top four can win. Dunub, who had a satisfactory comeback, 14-1. There's Oscar Whiskey, also from the Henderson Yard, at 14-1. And Mill Chief from Alan King, who knows what it takes to win a champion hurdle, and 25-1 bar, including last year's runner-up, Kyber Kim. So let's have a look at, well, we're going to start by looking at Peddler's Cross because he's a phenomenal horse, a winner at the festival last year, one of the longer of the novice hurdles there. He's a very, very tough horse, Peddler's Cross.
There's no doubt about it. He's got the right attitude. And the one thing is, you know, Donald McCain, you've got to remember, his horses did normally improve a fraction for their runs, but he sets his horses up for each race. And, you know, I like this horse. He's unbeaten in all his starts. I think it's 6 runs, including a point. And Starluck finishing, 2 lengths behind him there at Newbury. Binocular was 7 lengths back in third. But the one thing is, having been there at Nicky's on the lead into this race and seeing Binocular, there was a hell of a lot of improvement in him. And I'd expect him to improve at least the 7 lengths that he was beaten.
Well, and we saw a lot of improvement when he won the Christmas hurdle at Kempton. His hurdling was electrifying, and then he ran at Sandown. He just doesn't seem to run particularly well in that race because he didn't look the same horse as he did at Kempton.
No, and that's the big thing as well.
Why? I mean, what is it about him?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's the time of the year, Robert, and that's something I'm a great believer in. Certain horses, certain trainers, their horses do well at certain times of the year, and I just think at Sandown, he was the same the previous year when he disappointed. He drifted right out to 8-1, I think, for the champion on the back of a win at Sandown last year. Rue the Noise, the horse that he beat, no great shakes, but at the same time he won, and a win's a win.
And part of it, I mean, you were talking about, you know, they're at their best in these championship races, going a furious pace. So he's got, he jumps electrifyingly fast, doesn't he?
He does, and that's the beauty of him. And, you know, you ask AP McCoy, of course, he won the champion hurdle on Make a Stand, yet he loves this horse. He just thinks that his hurdling is his greatest asset. And when they go flat out, which I'm sure they will, there's going to be plenty of runners in the champion this year, and it's probably one of the races at a festival.
I think it is.
And, you know, it's going to be run at a frenetic pace.
We saw Peddler's Cross winning there, beating Binocular. Now, the big problem that Donald McCain has, or more than likely has, is jockey booking here, because Jason Maguire looks like he's going to miss the ride through suspension. I mean, how difficult is it for a new pilot to come in a race like the Champion Hurdle?
It's not going to be ideal, is it? But at the same time, you know, he looks straightforward, Peddler's Cross. It's not like he has any great kinks or any different ways about him. I would be fairly happy for one of the top lads to ride him. But the thing is, because there's so many runners and so many fancied runners in the race, who's going to ride him? That's got to be the next big question. And somebody like, you know, Graham Lee hasn't got a ride. He's performed well for the stable in the past. But I think the debate rages on. Will Ruby Walsh ride Hurricane Fly? Paul Townend's ridden the last 5 winners on him. Ruby's ridden the horse twice and won on him as well. So I think that could be the key. Whichever one of those 2 top jockeys don't ride Hurricane Fly, I think it's going to be very difficult for Donald McCain not to ask one of those.
Well, let's have a look at Hurricane Fly, because Hurricane Fly has been, he's been in fantastic form. He's missed the last 2 festivals through injury, and here he is winning the Irish Champion Hurdle, beating his old adversary Solwit. I mean, Solwit must be sick of the sight of him. In fact, he's so sick of the sight of him, he's going to run him a world
The
hurdle.
last 5 starts, I think this horse has been beaten by Hurricane Fly. And, you know, the one thing you've got to say is 1,000 Stars back in third. A horse who's a winner at the Cheltenham Festival. So you've got a little bit of festival form. You don't really have any other guide to go with Hurricane Fly because he's never actually run at the festival.
I mean, he looks to me, he seems to have a really good sort of finishing burst. But I mean, how good is he compared to the form in Britain this year? Because he's only been, obviously he can only beat what opposes him. But how good is that form?
I think it's very good.
Do you?
I think don't underestimate this horse, and I think there's a wealth of Irish money. They haven't really got anything to latch on to on the first day, all bar Hurricane Fly, and I think there'll be a lot of Irish punters who'll be getting stuck on into this horse. Ruby Walsh, pretty good judge. He rates this fella.
There's no doubt. I know the Irish will get stuck into him. He finishes his races on heavy ground as if he's running on fast going. He's got a real burst of speed. I mean, how will he be on much better ground?
I think he'll be absolutely fine. I really do. I think this horse, we haven't seen the best of him because we haven't seen him take on the best there is. And, you know, I think they've tried different things. Solwit, they tried dropping him in, trying to do Hurricane Fly from behind him. They've tried forcing it with Solwit to try and beat him. And, you know, Solwit's no back number. But I just think that Hurricane Fly, it'll be great to see how good he is.
Do you see a first 3 finish for Hurricane Fly?
Yes, I do. I think the way he travels in his races, the way he jumps, everything points towards him having a really strong chance.
Well, we mentioned, Peddler's Cross as the novice who's taking on the big boys this year. Menorah is also another one of those. I mean, he hasn't run since December, but he looks extremely, on the up, doesn't he? I mean, I was looking at his win the other day, and he quickened away from Q Card and rivals and was very impressive.
Yes, he was. He's a very smart horse, but I think the person who holds the key here is AP McCoy. He will get me out of here last year in the Supreme. He got beaten ahead by Menorah, and I think if you asked him and pinned him down and said, "Is there any doubt which is the better horse?" and I think he'll tell you no.
Have you pinned him?
Well, no, because he wouldn't give me a straight answer.
He wouldn't give you a straight answer.
But,
you think that's what he would say?
There's absolutely no doubt in his mind. I think if there was never any doubt that he was going to think about riding Get Me Out of Here. So I think you've got to say to yourself, well, he obviously feels Binocular is a much better horse.
Okay, well, Binocular. But Menorah, how do you see him running?
I see him running well because he's got a good racing style. He travels very easy in his races, and off the back of a strong pace, he'll have a little bit of a finishing kick. So I think you'll see him going to the last with every chance.
We'll be looking at the stats a bit later on. You may be slightly put off if you are a Menorah fancy, but I mean, some people like... Are you a stats man?
Yes, I am.
You are?
I think at Cheltenham they stack up a little bit because horses that have got previous form at the festivals is one of the big stats that keeps cropping up year after year.
5-year-olds don't have a particularly good record. I mean, Catch It is the exception. I mean, there's an enormous...
We'll see you then. Did he not win a champion hurdle?
Well, yeah, but we're going back a bit though, aren't we?
Yeah, but...
Okay, so therefore you put a line through that stat. Okay. Oscar Whiskey, also from the Nicky Henderson stable. He's a horse I like an awful lot, and here he is winning the Welsh version of a champion hurdle. Obviously, he's going to have much more on his plate here, but he's quite lightly raced. Every time I see him, I'm impressed by him.
Yeah, he's a smart horse, this, and I think this horse will win at the Cheltenham Festival. I'm just not sure if it's this year. I think when this horse jumps fences, he will be absolutely top drawer. And there's no doubt he's got a lot of natural speed, he's got a lot of ability, and that's the big thing. And I'm just praying that they run him in the World Hurdle because I've taken some fancy odds about him in the World Hurdle. Have you? Yeah.
Have you?
I have, because I just think he's got a little bit to find with the top horses. I don't really see him as a champion hurdle horse. I think he'll be on the fringe and he'll be there again, another one that'll be there going to the last. But I just think that the World Hurdle is there.
The world at his feet. Okay, so you're praying. So I think Di Waters.
Only because I've taken a very fancy price about him in the World Hurdle.
And there is nothing worse than taking a fancy price when you find that you've done your money because the horse goes for something else.
Yeah.
So look for the bookmakers that offer you non-runner, no bet in that. Of the other ones, there's Mill Chief, who won the Kingwell Hurdle narrowly. but he's a horse with a touch of class. Missed for Cheltenham Festival last year. Alan
Next.
King was really glowing about him, and he thought of all his Triumph Hurdle horses he's had in recent years, he thought he was about the best, and he possesses a real turn of foot. Or you're nodding, saying, "Okay, you keep on talking up. Not good enough, you think?"
Next.
Well, what's your assessment of Mill Chief?
Well, he got kicked out of the way by AG and Dawn, didn't he, at Ascot? Now, AG and Dawn, if that's the case, the way he's beaten him,
That was a comeback run there, wasn't it? Okay.
I can't. If he wins, I'll be the first to sit here and say I was very, very wrong, but I can't see it.
Okay. Now, Dunub.
Yes, I think this is one that has to come into calculations.
I
think he was a very, when you think 4 to 6 last year, he started in the Supreme Novices Hurdle.
Bookmakers were almost paying out before he even ran last year. He was thought to be an absolute stone cold certainty.
Well, they all said one of the big things was if your horse finishes second at Dunub, will refund.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, but it was a great marketing ploy. But he was, the horse was a victim of circumstance.
Overhyped, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think he was a very good horse as a novice, and I think Brian O'Connell, who rode him, he was unlucky because the horse missed early on in the race, then got carried and trapped a little bit wide, and the horse just didn't have the ideal run. Then he ran next time in that Rabobank Irish Champion Hurdle at Punchestown, and again he had a troubled passage because he was just too keen. I think this is a very smart horse, and I think he's the value bet to be placed at a big price.
What did you think of his comeback run?
I thought it was a good enough run behind Luscalad. He's not.
He jumped okay,
yeah,
didn't he?
He jumped nicely. And the thing is with him, Philip Fenton is a very good trainer. I think this horse will turn up on the day, and he's been very much brought along gently, and I think he's another one that'll be bang there jumping the last.
I don't know whether Philip Fenton always had quite a happy smile on his face, but when he was interviewed after Dunub's win, he looked very, very pleased with what he'd just seen.
Yeah, well, I think he was, because there's a lot of pressure on him, and when you've got a horse of that quality, you want him to produce the goods, and I think he did. And I really think that if you were a real fancier of Dunub last year, I think you deserve to give him another chance.
Well, we've mentioned only 3 can, of course, finish in the first 3.
Unless you get 16 plus runners, and then bookmakers decide to pay on the first 4.
Yeah, but is that likely?
You're not holding your breath then.
I'm not. Well, that might make Mill Chief to squeak into the money. You'd rather put me off there. I might keep my powder dry a bit longer. Any other outsiders we haven't mentioned in the Kyber Kim, the runner-up last year? If he runs.
I was at Kempton the other day when he walked. Horse looked fantastic. Walked brilliantly as well. So I think he's another one that has to come into the mix. He's a winner of the big hurdle up at Aintree as well. Second to Binocular last year.
Absolutely.
Reproduction of that form gives him a squeak of being in the money.
I think it'd be unfair to rate him on finishing well beaten behind Binocular in the Christmas hurdle.
Yeah, I think you've got to put a line through that. He
didn't run that badly, actually.
He didn't, but he's capable of better.
Yeah.
And I think looking at him on Saturday, he looked fantastic.
So at odds, as we speak, he's run about 25 to 1 if he runs in that. He'd be an each way shot, especially if they were paying first 4.
A few each way thieves out there.
Let's have a look at the prices there. So Binocular, the 7 to 2 favourite. We can have a look at the stats here. We've got a few interesting stats. Some of them you will kick out of the room. The last 16 winners all run since the 1st of January. Well, that knocks out Menorah, who ran in December. Beulah was the last Supreme Hurdle winner to follow up in the following year's Champion Hurdle. That's amazing. That's 40 years ago. That's Menorah. Another stat against Menorah. Does that put you off him or not?
No.
There you are. You're not a stats man, then, are you? The Neptune Novices Hurdle produced 2 winners and 2 thirds. Peddler's Cross fans will be pleased with that. Isterbrack was one of those. Hardy Eustace was another one, wasn't he? 7 of the last 10 Champion Hurdle winners have finished 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the previous year. Well, that's fair enough one, isn't it?
But what does that tell you about the Neptune race? It basically tells you need a horse that stays. Because if the likes of Hardy Eustace and Isterbrack, both of them stayed really well. So you need something that gets you all the way up the hill.
Well, that could be another stat against Menorah then.
Could be.
Yeah, okay. Well, the last 3 winners all contested the fighting 5th. Well, okay. Well, that's Peddler's Cross and Binocular this year.
Yeah.
But, there's always a but, isn't there? Only 1 winner of the Christmas Hurdle, that was Binocular this year, has followed up in the Champion in 20 years. But the Christmas Hurdle wasn't run at Christmas. It was run after the New Year. So that might be an exception. I only think, look
It's
at this
right,
one. 1 in 85 runners since 1985. That's when you're going back to the, to the heady days of, when Eccles was in charge at Seven Barrows. 5-year-olds, 1 in 85. That's catch it. So that's a bit worrying, isn't it?
Yeah.
What does that tell you, in fact? Why? Why is that?
There probably hasn't been such good 5-year-olds.
There have been only 3 winners age older than 8 since 1951. Well, that's a fair enough one, isn't it? Right, Rooster Booster was one of those, I think. He was about 9 in 2003. So, having heard all that, we needn't have gone through all this. You're going to say Binocular anyway, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'm afraid very unoriginal, but I like. I just think that Nicky Henderson, he's a master trainer when it comes to.
Oh, I've been given Mill Chief. Okay. Each way.
He's a master trainer when it comes to Cheltenham. He'll train him for the race. So, for me, Binocular. And each way, a little bit of each way money. Dunub maybe.
Dunub. Yeah. So that's 2 in the frame. And if you had to choose one more to finish in the money. Well, you said Hurricane Fly earlier. Yeah. Should we put him in?
Yeah.
Are you wiser now? Anyway, there we are. Mick goes for Binocular, and I'll pin my each way money on Mill Chief. That was our Champion Hurdle preview, the Stan James Champion Hurdle preview on the At the Races mega site.